The death warrant. Maggie Cheetham wants a swift police probe into the 656 suspicious deaths at the Hampshire hospital. She fears a drawn-out investigation could mean any case against the GP takes 5 or 10 years to get to trial, by which time Mrs. Cheetham's health could have deteriorated to the extent that she could not speak for her aunt, who died in 1999, aged 78. Ethel had been sent to recover at the hospital after successful hip surgery but rapidly deteriorated after an excessive dose of diamorphine. Mrs. Cheetham said, "The police investigation should be conducted properly but swiftly. I'm 85 now and in good health, and I am willing to give evidence in court, but I can't say what I will be like in 5 or 10 years' time. There is an awful lot of evidence out there now, so the police should press on and do their job. Ethel deserves justice and I will fight for that with every breath in my body." Hampshire police conducted 3 failed probes into deaths at the hospital, where 456 deaths have now been called into question in a report published last week. Files are now being prepared for a force to launch another investigation, which may finally lead to charges. The tragic demise of Ethel is the first patient case history in the independent panel report and makes for unsettling reading. Although she struggled with learning difficulties, Ethel had held down a clerical job with NatWest Bank through her working life. When she fell and broke her hip, she had been living in a nursing home in Gosport near Mrs. Cheetham, who, although not a blood relative, regarded Ethel as her aunt and was her next of kin. After a partial hip replacement in June 1999, she was recovering well at the Royal Hassler Hospital in Gosport. Dr. Ian Reid assessed her on June 24 and said she was pleasant and cooperative, was not in pain, and he thought she had the physical potential to remobilize. 4 days later she was transferred to Gosport War Memorial Hospital for rehabilitation, care and mobilization, as she was able to wash, dress and feed herself. Mrs. Cheetham recalled, "She was doing very well at Hassler. She was sitting up in bed, chipper and looking forward to going home." However, she went downhill very quickly at Gosport War Memorial Hospital. Dr. Barton had prescribed fentanyl patches for pain and by July 26 made a note in her clinical record stating further deterioration overall. "Please keep comfortable. I am happy for nursing staff to confirm death." At 11:15 am on that day, Ethel was given the syringe driver which pumped 90 milligrams of diamorphine into her frail body. She was also given 20 milligrams of another drug, midazolam. By 7 p.m. she was dead. Fighting back tears, Mrs. Cheetham recalled that day. "I couldn't believe how badly she had deteriorated in just a few weeks. She was unconscious in her bed and it was dreadful to see, shocking. I sat and held her hand, and she did not look right at all. At one stage I called a nurse over because I felt Ethel had died, and she had. It was all so sudden and unexpected. I'd been looking forward to helping her settle in back at her home, but then I was having to arrange her funeral. Ethel did not have a soul in the world and I'd accepted power of attorney, so there was a lot to do. I did not speak to Dr. Barton about the treatment at the hospital. She had been my GP, so I knew her. When I saw the death certificate, she gave cause of death as bronchopneumonia. I said at the hospital that Ethel no more had pneumonia than I did. The certificate also mentioned senile dementia, but I don't think there was much evidence of that. In my view, Dr. Barton had no right to give those reasons for the cause of death. Like others, I put my trust in the people at the hospital. I had questions, but they were the people in charge, so I had to accept what had happened, but I was not happy about it." Last week's report stated, "The panel has not seen any document to show that the nurses took into account the possible side effects of morphine when noting Miss Thurston's condition. The panel has not found any document to show any evidence of bronchopneumonia." It added, "The 90 mg starting dose of diamorphine was excessive, at least 3 times the recommended dose." Divorcee Mrs. Cheetham was at the launch of the report, which brought back a flood of upsetting memories. She said, "The panel said it was a particularly tragic case. Ethel had learning difficulties, but she'd held down a good job through her working life. I felt she was vulnerable and wanted her near me when she retired so I could keep an eye on her. One of my most treasured memories was when I took her on a cruise for a week. She absolutely loved it and lived on the memories for years. She should have gone home from that hospital and resumed her life. She could have lived for many more years and we could have enjoyed many more happy times. Like the others, she did not deserve her fate. Dr. Barton, 70, lives in Gosport with her husband Tim, a former Royal Navy Commodore. She has not commented on the report and is believed to be on holiday on Mallorca.